It's funny because Nora Jones was going to UNT at the same time, and we used to eat lunch together and argue over whose name was spelled right, because she has an H at the end of hers and I do not.
Welcome to Story and Craft. Now, here's your host, Mark Preston.
All right, welcome back. Another episode of Story and Craft. Glad to have you back with me today. Hey, if it's your first time to check out the show, thank you. Thank you so much for coming by and checking out the little bit of mischief I stir up once a week, soon to be twice a week. More on that later. Today, you get to enjoy a chat I've been looking forward to with the lovely, the talented actor, Nora Zehetner. She has been in a lot of TV shows you're familiar with, kind of like The Right Stuff, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Designated Survivor, Mark Maron's show. Maron, loved that show. Also Grey's Anatomy, and she and I actually worked on a project together going back 9-10 years called the Astronaut Wives Club. This is the first time, if memory serves, I've had a chance to speak with someone I've actually worked with. Thought that was kind of cool. She had a movie come out back in April with Josh Lucas and Stephen Dorff. It was called Blood for Dust. This Friday, July 5th, she has a new one with Mel Gibson called Boneyard. Really enjoyed this chat. Above and beyond working together, we also found out we had a connection. We grew up just a couple of miles from one another and went to school in the North Dallas suburb of Richardson. We also went to the University of North Texas. I went there a few years before her. Didn't have an opportunity to meet her then, but I have been wanting to chat with Nora going back years. And finally, we're sitting down, we're chatting. And also, I've got a small favor to ask. Whatever device and whatever app you are listening on, please do me a favor, if you would, follow the show. Right now, pick up the phone or computer. Well, don't pick up the computer, unless it's a laptop. That should be pretty easy. Just go ahead and follow the show. That way you get notified every time there is a new episode. Also, if you would, leave a review, drop some stars. That is really helpful when it comes time for folks to discover Story and Craft. It means a lot to me if you could do that. Thank you, thank you, thank you in advance. Also, everything Story and Craft is at storyandcraftpod.com. All social media stuff, you can send me a note, you can find out about our guests, and pretty much everything about the show is right there. All right, so let's get after it. Today is Nora Zehetner Day, right here on Story and Craft.
Hello.
Hey, Nora, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well, doing very well. Where are you joining me from today?
Los Angeles.
Glad you had a chance to connect today. It's a kind of a cool full circle random thing. I know. We'll get to it in a moment, but it's like I don't even know if I met you, God, it would be roughly 2015 Astronaut Wives Club, way back when. Definitely jazzed to finally connect. It's only been 9 years, if my math is correct here? So
yeah, it's weird. It feels like ages ago, and then it feels like it was just yesterday. I feel like the pandemic really did a weird thing with years and time, and
somebody will talk about 2019, 2020, 2021, and I feel like we just kind of went into some kind of a time accelerator or something, because having 3 teenagers at the time, trying to navigate their thing, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, it's been, 4, almost 5 years now. So, but you've been very busy even since then. But I'm curious. I just kind of want to go back real quick, origin story, if you will. I know you and I share kind of a little connection with, some time in Richardson.
Yeah, did you go to Northwood Hills?
Actually, I went to Greenwood Hills, and I also went to Mohawk. And I just found out the other day, because I'm on a little group of folks who went to J.J. Pierce High School. And they said, oh, yeah, they're shutting down 3 elementary schools in Richardson. And one of my Greenwood Hills, they're shutting down my old elementary, which is just kind of, and I actually grew up across the street from it. So it was kind of cool, because even from being a little kid, I could throw a stone and hit it. How long were you there? How long did you live in Richardson? You were young. You were in elementary.
Yeah, I lived in Richardson until, oh goodness, I went to Northwood Hills until the middle of 4th grade, and then my mom, after my parents divorced, my mom went back to school, and we lived with my grandparents in El Paso for a few years. And then she graduated and we moved back to Dallas around 7th grade. And then I went to Westwood Junior High.
Right off of Arapahoe. Yeah, that's so weird.
I went there for a year and a half, and then my mom moved out to, like, Princeton, to, like, the
Oh,
country.
yeah. Hey, that's where I did my
Uh,
country driving. When you do your driver's ed, you do city driving, and then they called it country driving.
really?
Yeah, went out to Princeton, uh,
You do that?
Anna, McKinney, all those areas that you remember as being farmland. They're now all like big developments.
Yeah, it's crazy. McKinney is, like, huge now. Um, yeah, and then yeah, and then yeah, so I was back there, and then I went back to El Paso for a minute, and then I went to McKinney High School for a year, and then I went to, UNT. They had a program where you skip your last 2 years of high school, so I went there when I was 16.
Oh, really? Yeah. So we both went to UNT also. Look, I know people are
Oh,
probably listening, going, "Boy, this is an interesting memory lane." Little like
I yeah.
that's kind of interesting. You did a lot of moving around when you were young. Are you an only child, or did you have any
Yeah.
siblings?
I have a half brother, but we didn't grow up together. My father had him when I was about 19, so
Okay.
big age difference.
Oh yeah. I got one of those too. The folks I've spoken with, moving around a lot seems to be kind of a common theme of something that kind of, I don't say facilitates, but it's kind of a common thread, especially if you're an only child moving around, you're kind of in your own head a little bit more. Would you say that's accurate in kind of your experience?
I mean, I would say I'm pretty cerebral, and also the moving around, it's interesting because you go into so many different worlds. Like people live very differently in even different parts of the city, or and maybe something about the observation of that lends itself.
You said you went to UNT, which is a real big arts school. What are they known for? Like their jazz band and whatnot. Were you there for like acting? Was that kind of already something on your mind, or you just were starting college early, just not sure what you wanted to do?
I wanted to get out of high school. I just wanted to grow up, faster than I was supposed to. So now I'm complete opposite. I feel like I'm 20 all the time. But
You and me both, yeah.
yeah,
Which really irritates the hell out of my 18-year-old. I will say that. So
I'm sure. Yeah. No, I it was actually a math and science program. So polar opposite. But we were in a special dorm because we were all underage, so
oh,
they
which
couldn't
which
just have
dorm did
us.
they put you in? Do you remember?
Oh gosh.
I remember mine was Clark, which was, kind of a co-ed, and then there was Maple, and then there was Kerr Hall, which is the high rise. And there was the one all the jazz kids were in that didn't have air conditioning.
Bruce Hall.
Yeah.
So we were right next door to Bruce Hall. Ours was only for this program called TAMS, Texas Academy of Math and Science. But we were right next door. We shared the mess hall with Bruce Hall. And actually, it's funny because Nora Jones was going to UNT at the same time, and we used to eat lunch together and argue over whose name was spelled right because she has an H at the end of hers, and I do not. And then she got very famous right after, like the next year or something, and then people started spelling my name with an H. So it's upsetting because I feel like she kind of won the argument, at least temporarily.
Now, if we were to go back even you're younger, was there something magnetic about the acting thing? Because by the time you were in college, you were, of course, doing the math and science. But was there anything at a young age where you're like, oh yeah, that TV, that movie thing sounds awesome? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, I just love movies. And I remember actually when we were living in this little town, Princeton, I was briefly there. There was like a tiny store, with VHS tapes.
Yeah.
We don't have anymore. A video store. I couldn't like think of the name video store. It's so strange. And it's been so long. And they had actually like a great indie film selection. And I was really friendly with the owner. It was a really sweet guy. And I would just check out every independent film that he got in. And
At a young age, that's kind of, I'm not saying that's odd. That's a little bit out of, when kids are watching, the big Hollywood blockbusters, you're going for the indie stuff. Was that what your folks were into, or is that just what grabbed you?
no, I mean, I loved all movies. I think I was around 13 then. And yeah, but just growing up, I love movies and TV. Like I was a real couch potato. Like it was, I mean, I also love being outdoors, but I could sit down and once I started watching something, I just like, it was hard to move me. And books, I would also do the same thing with books. I just like, I guess, to consume stories. So no, I don't know. I don't know what happened because it was something that was just a dream because I didn't even study acting in school or anything. Even in high school, I wasn't in any theater programs. Um, and then I was going to this program at UNT, and I was 16, and I was taking all math and science classes, and it wasn't what where my passions laid. Like even if it wasn't acting, it would be in a more creative field for me personally. And so I am sorry, I'm like still my brain.
No, you're
Uh,
fine. You're fine.
anyways, so I was in this program and I started buying for this clothing store that I had worked for over the summer. And I would go to LA once a month and pick the
Really?
clothes.
How
Yeah,
old were you when you were doing that?
16.
You're
I really peaked at 16. I was in college. I was buying for a clothing
Wait,
store.
so you were
So my
16 traveling to LA once a month?
yeah,
That's pretty awesome, actually.
yeah, it was really, really fun. And I got this idea in my head that I wanted to move there and maybe try the acting thing. And I had this advisor within the program at school who I had to see like once a week because I was really bad about going to class or studying. And if you don't have basically like if you go below a 3.0 GPA, then you have to go in and meet the academic advisor, Dr. Donahue. So me and Dr. Donahue spent a lot of time together. And he actually encouraged me. He was like, you know what? You're 2 years ahead of everybody else. Like, if you wanted to do this right now, like, and you were actually studying, then you would be doing great, but you're not. And you have this interest in this other thing. And why not go try it now, while you're young instead of going into a career of something else that maybe you don't care about as much?
Well, that was very enlightened of them to tell you that because when I was in school, it was always like, you want to go 4 years, you want to go somewhere, you got to put in your time, get a nice title on your business card. But it wasn't really focused on your passions and the things that when I was in school, it was get on the rails of this track that will take you to getting your bachelor's, maybe a master's. But to have somebody say, no, go ahead, flex your, spread your wings rather.
Yeah, it was a big thing because, certainly nobody else wanted me to do that because I was in this program where you go 2 years early and you finish that, you go to, an Ivy League school on scholarship and you're kind of set up for success. And so when I said I was going to leave, although frankly, I was probably going to get kicked out of the program after the first
We're
year.
going to say it was your choice. We're going to say it's your choice.
Sure. I could have turned it around, but mm, everybody, my family was not particularly pleased. They became very supportive, but it was a big opportunity. So yeah, I've actually like tried to get a hold of Dr. Donahue to say thank you, and I haven't been able to, but because it was a big turning point for me.
So, what were your folks up to as far as career wise? Were they at all in the arts, or were you the outlier? You were the pioneer.
Just me.
Just you?
Yeah, my mom worked at Macy's growing up, and then when my parents divorced, she wound up going back to nursing school, and then she was a nurse after that. And then my father worked at Macy's growing up, and he had other jobs like that. Yes.
Yeah. So, did you have family in El Paso? Is that what kept bringing you out that way?
Yes, my grandparents, my mother's parents, who were really wonderful, and I used to spend every summer with them. And
Once you were going back and forth to LA, was that the genesis of like a bug biting you? Were you kind of seeing what was happening in LA and like, this seems cool to me?
yeah, I mean, I was 16. It was exciting.
How are you getting around at 16 years old? Did you know somebody out there? Or were you just going by cab?
No, I would, the owner of the stores would travel with me, and then we would go to the market downtown, and I would pick out the things, and he would pay for the things. And
Well, you remember Dallas. Actually, my grandfather, rest his soul, he was in women's fashions and stuff, and he had he was importing stuff from having a manufacturer, like in stuff in Hong Kong and whatever. This is going back a long time ago, but he had a place at the Dallas Apparel Mart. I don't know if you remember that, way a long time ago, and but yeah, that was kind of my I learned all about market and and all like sample sales and all that kind of jazz. So was fashion kind of something you're like, this resonates with me? Maybe you're going to be a fashion designer, retailer, something like that. Not retailer, or does something in fashion, was that something on your brain?
yeah, no, it was definitely something I was interested in. I grew up like my mom was a model, and so we, from a very young age, I was reading fashion magazines and watching like Style with Elsa Clinch on Saturday mornings when I was 8 instead of watching cartoons. And so, so
No, you kind of buried the lead there. Your mother was a model. Well, see, she was she was in the entertainment ecosystem
yeah.
there. Was she modeling in Dallas? Is that where she
No,
was?
she
Or
was modeling in New York and London and Japan.
it sounds like she had some perspective to share with you about being a young lady and getting out into the world. Was she an advocate once you decided to start acting and doing this thing? Was she all in, or did she just have a lot of cautionary tales for you?
No cautionary tales, but she was just nervous. They just wanted me to get an education, and obviously acting is not the most stable career. Um, and but now she's my biggest supporter, and it's been wonderful. But yeah, she's definitely a creative person, and my father's was a creative person as well. That they just didn't have careers in the arts at all.
Okay, you've gone back and forth to El Paso, but when was the official move to L.A.? Is that as well as L.A. where you started your acting career?
Yes. I moved to LA when I was 17, turning 18. And I didn't even try and get an agent or anything. I had like 2 little part-time jobs. And then I think about 4 or 5 months into it, kind of everything went wrong. Like I got into a car accident, lost my insurance, lost one of my jobs, and I just was like, I'm going back to Texas. It was the summer or something. And I went back, and I kind of didn't want to go back to LA after that because easy to go the first time, it's harder to go back. But I had my
You were
stuff.
so young, though. I can't even imagine being that age in L.A.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas, yes, Dallas is turning into LA, it feels like, as far as the size goes, but you're used to a big city. But when you go to LA, you're really going into especially at that age, had to feel like you were jumping into the deep end of the pool.
I think when you're young, you don't know any better. Like to me, as an adult, it seems like, oh wow, you did that. You moved to LA on your own when you were 17. Scary, but at the time it was just exciting. But going back, it seemed scary. And I remember my mom drove back with me, and I kind of didn't want to go back, but I had my stuff in storage there, so I had to go back one way or the other. And then when I went back, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it. And I remember I took a little picture that somebody had taken of me and wrote a note, like, hi, I'm 18. I just moved here from Texas, and dropped it off at a few small agencies where I thought they might actually get it. And I got an agent, and it was a lucky time because it was when they were making all those teen movies, in the late 90s.
Oh, that's right. American Pie 2 was your first movie, right? Am I correct?
Uh, no, I was in one called Tart before that. I think that was like
Okay,
17,
okay.
yeah.
But back then was when they were really rolling out those R-rated teen movies, which
Mhm,
was just that was kind of like a big thing in the moment.
mhm.
Now, when you started, was there an idea like, I want to do this kind of stuff? You had been watching the independent films when you were younger. Did you have a sense of where you wanted to kind of put your crosshairs? And
Yeah, I was a little snobby. Like, I think I probably shot myself in the foot because I didn't wanna do, the teen movies, and I would pass on a lot of stuff. I really wanted to work with great filmmakers and tell stories that were interesting to me and.
one of the things that's so impressive about you, you always seem to be working. Well, I mean, you always seem to be doing something interesting. We'll put it like that. The first time I became aware was after, of course, Astronaut Wives Club, but
Mhm.
which I thought was kind of interesting because you did the right stuff, which is
Mhm.
sort of the same story, kind of. It's sort of the same ecosystem,
Sure.
kind of the whole space thing. As you were moving along, what were you gravitating towards mostly? Were you intrigued by anything in particular that you had been doing? Like, I want to do some more of this,
Mhm.
or were you going wherever the work was, kind of a thing?
I mean, you know what? It's interesting because I've definitely I it's both. Like, what I am drawn to is often what other people wanna hire me for, luckily, and I've definitely gone through times where, you say I'm always working, I'm not, where and I do a lot of things that don't pay a large amount of
Oh,
money. So there's been times where I'm like, "Oh my god, I need a job," and I'll put myself up for things that aren't really what I wanna do, and I'll try my best, and they don't hire me for those things. So it's like a weird thing that, I guess I'm lucky in a sense that what I gravitate towards is usually I have to turn these off. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I
no, you're okay. No, no,
had
no,
work
no
things
worries, no
on.
worries.
How do I turn them off? Oh, do not disturb. There we go. Okay. I'm really bad with computers. Um,
But the things you were doing, I mean, I always tell, like, I teach voiceover, and I always tell my students, there ain't no shame in, doing what you got to do to get done what you got to get done.
oh, 100%. I completely agree with you.
You're doing the acting thing. Were you starting to flex into other areas? Like, I think, isn't photography something you have a passion for? Was that kind of something you just kind of came into, or was that all, well, the fashion, the acting, photography, was it all kind of happening all at the same time for you?
It's just, I mean, I guess I am interested in most creative things. Like I take classes and different things, whatever interest me. I took, a drawing class. I took a painting class recently. I took a poetry writing class. I just, whatever, you know, seems interesting to me in the moment, I'll go into. But photography is something that I've done since I was in my early 20s. And I don't know really what got me into that, except for I really liked photography. And
But don't you still do it on 35 millimeter film? Is that right?
yes.
What is it about film you like as opposed to going the digital route?
Oh, I think it's the richness. It's the Yeah, it just looks different, it has a different feel to me. I know you can process digital to make it look more like film, but it's not the same thing. I love that you can't take a million pictures of one thing, that you have to get it, and I love the surprise because now I'm pretty bad. I'll have a roll of film in my camera for I've been really bad about using it. So it'll be a while before I develop the film. And it's such a wonderful surprise to see what's on it. And even if you just get a few great shots, that's great. But if you get a whole roll of like different things that are interesting and it's exciting.
Well, you've been around long enough to remember taking your roll of film to Eckerd's and having to wait a day or two for them to develop it. And that's, the excitement of getting a package of
Mhm.
pictures, and that now it's people like grab their phone and take like 50 pictures to get that one candid
Right.
picture. Oh, kids these days.
Yeah.
I feel so old when I talk sometimes. I'm like, they don't know what it's like. We had to go to Fox Photo. So when you're taking pictures, are you focusing on anything in particular? Just landscapes or people, or is there something that grabs your attention most?
No, I mean, I love shooting people. I also love landscapes. Uh, it's just a visual thing. I mean, I think it's also a nice way to slow down and see the world, in a different way as well. But that sounds really corny, but it's
No,
great.
not at all. I mean, when you see something through a viewfinder, or it pulls your focus, it's
Mm.
almost kind of zen in a way. You're focusing on this one little thing, and then
Well, it's just kind of a thing you start noticing the way the light's like bouncing off of something in the day, and even when I'm walking my dog, I'll kind of frame things in my head, and I think it's yeah.
American Pie was such, and I hit rewind. I don't mean to kind of focus on that, but that was at a time that was a big deal. Kicked off a whole bunch of teen movies like Road Trip or whatever, and a
Mm.
bunch of that genre. After that, what were you scooting into? What was the kind of arc, of things you were showing up in at that point in time that you enjoyed? There were things that you were like really had. They were formative. Maybe that's the word I'm looking
Right.
for.
I mean that I only had like a line in that. But I think like I did Everwood right after that, which was my first TV show. when I was in Utah shooting that, and I really liked that show. It was a really sweet show. And I did that for a bit, and then I uh, left that to do Brick, which is obviously like wound up being a really great thing for me, and was just a really wonderful experience.
Do you enjoy traveling to do projects? I mean, outside of LA, because so much stuff is shooting elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or do you like to stay kind of close to home when you're shooting?
It's been really rare that I've ever actually shot in LA. I've shot a couple of shows here. I remember Hira shot here, and that was in that nice Sunset Gower lot. That's so nice and easy. I really like that lot. And what else? A couple of things, but I mean everything that I've done in the last few years, right stuff was in Florida. I did a movie called Boys of Summer that's meant to come out in October, and that was in North Carolina. And then the last movie I did called Boneyard, and that was in Las Vegas. Yeah, so I haven't actually worked in California in quite a while.
During my time in New Orleans, I'd worked on a few projects, and we worked on the same episode. I think it was called Flashpoint. I don't know. I had to actually look up the name of the title of the episode. It was like supposed to be a dinner party, I guess, like in Houston. I mean, they shot it in New
I think I
Orleans,
know what
but
you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
my scenes were with Odette Annable
Oh, yeah.
and
Odette's the best.
oh gosh, I have to look at this because she's from New Orleans.
Azure?
Yeah, Azure Parsons. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was so much fun to shoot that. Also, being a fan of the space program. Did you study your character, or did you ever interact with the lady you were playing? Did you get in touch with them? Say, hey, I'm going to be doing this mini series. Did you have that opportunity?
No. The For that one, I played Marilyn Lovell and wait, or Marilyn C. Oh my god.
I think it's C.
Yeah,
I'm
it is
looking.
Marilyn C. Wow, my brain. Anyways, I played Marilyn C. I did not get to speak with her. I tried to find what I could on the internet, but and I read the book, but there wasn't a lot as much on that character because
Was that the first time you had played somebody, a real person?
possibly, yes, I think so. And then I played Annie Glenn for the right stuff with the stuffer. So I did a lot of work for that.
As far as the hobby, I want to call it hobbies. That kind of sounds reductive, but photography. Anything else that you like to do? Anything else when you're not shooting that keeps you occupied and kind of your passions are dialed into it? Anything else besides photography?
Writing and painting and yeah, those are kind of it. I try and meditate and do all those good things too.
The writing that you're passionate about, is that going to manifest, you think, into writing screenplays, or is it just in the realm of poetry?
Oh yeah. I just finished writing a screenplay, which is the first time I've done that because I'm very bad follow through. I have lots of ideas, very bad follow through, but I actually forced myself to sit down and do it. So I'm working on revising that now. But yeah.
Long term, are you thinking about with the mass migration of people from LA going to Texas? Do you ever find yourself kind of returning to Texas, or are you kind of deeply ensconced in liking the LA thing?
No, I think about moving places all the time. I don't know if it would be Texas, but yeah, I would definitely live someplace else. Whenever I go, I've realized recently that when I go and film in Montana or someplace like that, my whole nervous system just sort of calms down. And
Really,
yeah,
really.
I kind of like being a little bit more out in the country. Um,
It's funny you mentioned Montana. I watched an episode of Anthony Bourdain. It was No Reservations way
mm,
back when. He went to Montana. It really looked like this kind of majestic. Is that same thing they say psychologically? If you look at the ocean, not just looking out, or a desert, that
mm,
kind of a thing. I think there's something kind of almost primal, relaxing, kind of like what you're saying.
mhm.
But I think there's something about these vistas in Montana with the mountains and the plains. It is very beautiful up there. I've always wanted to see it in person, besides just pictures. Is that a possible destination for you, or maybe to the point, like what places have you considered moving to?
I think about moving to Europe a lot, to like Greece or Portugal or something like that. Yeah, I think what I liked about Montana or North Carolina or any of those places is being able to, like, get in the car and not be stuck in traffic and not feel like you're, crowded in at all angles and, yeah, I mean, Los Angeles is wonderful, but I've been here for a long time, so we'll see, we'll see. I've thought about Spain as well. My father's from Spain, so yeah.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, my daughter did studied in the fall in Barcelona, and then she went to Portugal. And she's like, I like Barcelona way more
Oh,
than
really?
Portugal.
Yeah.
No, I think Mark Maron is such an interesting guy.
Mhm,
His podcast is great.
mhm.
Yeah, but what was like working on Maron? How did Maron come along? And I haven't seen it in a while, but I enjoyed it. Was as far as kind of like independent TV show vibe. I think it was on IFC, if I'm not
Yeah, it was on
mistaken.
IFC.
Um, how did Marin, just as a side note, how did that come to you?
I read for it, and they hired me, and yeah, and that was it. I hadn't actually listened to his podcast before that. I'm so, like, out of touch sometimes with the podcast world, even though I enjoy them very much. So, yeah, and I went to do that, and it was fun. That was actually, like, based on a real person, so there you go.
I like to throw out my 7 questions, which are just a little extra fun for me. But the first one I always ask, and I am curious, being a kid from Texas who grew up same place I did by and large, what is your favorite comfort food?
Good question. Like pasta and garlic bread and salad, maybe? Like that.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Campese's when you lived in
Yeah, I love
Dallas?
Campese's.
Gotta love their pizza.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's one of those things like we have a pizza place down here like that. It's not the best, but it is the best of being what it is.
But that's the thing, like, when you were asking me about my favorite places to eat in Dallas, I mean, I don't think they were culinary, you know
like ponchos.
Yeah, but they were just what I loved, growing up. But yeah, that's probably my favorite comfort food, or tacos. I love Mexican food.
Whenever somebody I'm somewhere else, and they, oh, this is the best Mexican food. I'm like, no, it's not going to be.
Mhm.
Outside of Texas, it starts getting a little questionable. But the next question I got for you: if you were to sit down with 3 people, living or not, you're going to talk story for a few hours. Who would those 3 people be that you would like to sit down
Oh,
with?
no, I feel like I should have prepared for this question. Who would I wanna sit down with? Oh, man.
If it makes you feel better, this question seems to stump most people. And then I was speaking with Sheree Agdashlu. She threw it back at me. I'm like, oh, this is not an easy question. I thought it was an easier question than it was. And then I thought about it. It's like, oh man, there's so many choices.
Who
So
are your 3 favorites?
number one on the list would be my late grandfather, because you get to a certain age and my kids are a certain age and I want to ask questions. I want to kind of report in. I want to, those things when you're younger, you don't know to ask.
Yeah.
You don't know to even have discussions about, and I think that would be kind of a cool thing. Alan Watts, the
Mhm.
philosopher, I think that'd be really cool. And Anthony Bourdain would be, I think, if he was still around, it'd be a real. I always wish I'd had the opportunity to have him on. The people that I like talking, that I enjoy, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this, is people that are kind of thinkers that are out in the world kind of contemplating, maybe seeing things different than
Mhm.
I do, or maybe have had different experiences I haven't had that I may never have. That's kind of my philosophy. And then like I said, my grandfather's just that's more personal.
I mean, I would definitely take my grandparents back if that's an option. I thought it had to be stranger.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, then
Absolutely.
great, I'll just take all my grandparents. Be a family dinner. My grandma can, cook me something that she used to make that I love.
Well, that's a whole new dimension. It's somebody you can sit down with who can also cook for you.
Yeah, yeah.
That now to go back in time, let's pretend like you're back at Northwood Hills,
Mhm.
and your very first celebrity crush. You're going, oh, I love them.
Ooh. I mean, there were some teen actors, at the time, and I can't remember. I mean, probably I love the boys on 90210.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Uh, I love Michael Hutchins.
Oh, okay,
Phoenix
okay.
S. Is it Hutchins or Hutchinson?
It's Hutchins. I think it's a Michael
I think
Hutchins.
so too. Ooh. Um, Really bad with names. Really bad, obviously.
Well,
Evidenced by this.
now you mentioned Michael Hutchins, so we can take a little side detour. What kind of music were you listening to back when in the high and the kid years, high school, junior high? What was your jam back then?
Um, I listen to everything. I listen to a lot of hip hop. I listen to uh, NXS, and I know I have. It's interesting behind me. I have all of my mom's records. She gave them to me a couple of years ago. So I have all this good stuff from like the 80s and early 90s. I mean, I remember they would play like Tears for Fears and The Cure and
Oh yeah.
Sade and stuff like that. Uh,
Well, the first station I ever went on the air at in Dallas is, I don't know if you remember, 100.3 Jams.
mhm,
They played everything from Keith Sweat to New Kids on the Block. To, it was this weird mishmash, but I think they're one of the first stations to play Ice Ice Baby.
oh yeah.
Now, next question. If you were to be forced to live on an island, a place you
Mhm,
want to be, like a resort, but it doesn't have internet,
mhm,
and you got to bring one DVD, which is one movie and one CD, an album with you,
mhm.
what album and what movie would you bring with you to stay on that island for a full year? What would that be?
Hmm. Um, movie, I would say just go with Roman Holiday.
Is it Audrey
Yeah,
Hepburn? Audrey Hepburn's my OG favorite actor. That and Cary Grant.
yeah.
What album though?
Yeah, I mean that's tricky because that could get really annoying really fast. I'm trying to think of like my most played.
Well, it could be a compilation though.
Uh, I've listened to Heart Like a Whale by Linda Ronstadt way too much in the last couple of years. So maybe that's it. I seem to be able to listen to it a ton. What's yours?
Oh, geez. Oh God. I need to be better about this. If I'm asking questions, I should be prepared to answer them. See, throwing it back at me. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to you should give these 7 questions in advance because then I would have thought about it and had real answers.
Okay. Let's see. I would say, as far as album goes, if I'm going to be on an island and it's going to be something that I'm going to be listening to all year, I would say a best of compilation of Jimmy Buffett stuff
Okay.
or Jack Johnson or something like in that vein. Something chill that would kind of meet the moment.
Mm.
That of what it's like to. I'm kind of going for that Jimmy Buffett lifestyle right now. But yeah, that I think Jimmy Buffett. Why not throw that out there? But the way I grew up, I love all genres of music. There's something in almost every genre.
Mhm.
I'll pick from my daughter. My youngest loves country music. So whenever we're in the car, whatever I'm listening to, she's on Spotify turning it off and turning her country on.
Mhm.
So now, last couple of questions, if you weren't doing this, if you weren't acting, you weren't following your passion doing this, what would you be doing for a living? What could you see yourself doing?
Oh goodness, so many things. I mean, I thought about psychology. I thought about doing something environmental or what else? Politics, maybe.
Politics, really?
Yeah, I thought about that a lot when I was younger.
Well, we need you to come back to Texas and get involved in politics.
I know, I know, I know. Get rid of fucking oh, sorry, Greg Abbott.
Oh my gosh, you used to. No, you're fine. No,
Get rid of
you're gonna say Ted Cruz. No,
Ted Cruz and oh, I really hate Greg Abbott more than
growing up here.
anything.
See, you probably remember growing up down here, conservative, liberal. We can get together, we can argue, we can debate, and then we all go get a beer afterwards. It was not this tribal-ish vibe. I mean,
Mhm.
I grew up. Remember, Ann Richards was
Yeah,
governor when I was
yeah,
growing
me
up.
too.
So it had a much different feel. A little bit more. Now they got a bunch of just
Crazy people who don't care about anything. It's bizarre. They're definitely not trying to make anybody's lives better.
my daughter and I, new voters down here, maybe turn the tide.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
But the last question I got for you, if you were to jump in the DeLorean, go back in time
Uh-huh.
to when you were 16 years old, and you got a piece of advice for yourself to, in the moment, make excuse me, make life better,
Mhm.
or set you on a path that you feel like would be more effective, or whatever piece of advice you would want to give 16-year-old you?
Oh, I think I would say to believe in myself and also to be as kind to myself as I feel that I should be to others because I'm very hard on myself.
I've heard that many incarnations of that same idea.
Mm.
It's something like that, where right now it's not that it's not a big deal. It's just give yourself a break, give yourself
Yeah,
some latitude. Allow yourself breathing room to be you.
yeah.
I tell you, Nora, I really appreciate you taking time out with me. If I want to talk to you again, it's only been 9 years or something like that. I briefly spoke with you. I was like asking Odette Annable. She brought like in between scenes and you're flipping the cameras and lights
Uh-huh.
around. She was playing some kind of game. I was like, what is that game she's playing?
It's Settlers of Catan. Catan. Yeah,
Oh, wait a minute. You may have the answer then.
I have it. That's the answer. That's what everybody was playing in between takes.
Settlers of Catan. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you for solving this 9-year-old mystery for me. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. That's what I'm here for, really, right? You just threw that in at the end, but that was all you actually wanted to know. Okay.
I didn't really have a chance to talk to you that much. I mean, it's like I bookmarked it and here we
Here
are.
we
So now we're
are. Well,
talking.
it's a pleasure, Mark.
This is wonderful. I've been wanting to chat with you for a long time. I love watching you. Every time I see you show up in the credits, I'm like, yeah, I get to see Nora.
Aw, thank you.
Well, you take care. Thanks so much.
All right. It was lovely chatting with you.
Okay, there you go. The lovely, the talented Nora Zehetner. I so enjoyed this chat. She is so talented. She's just cool. I'll just leave it at that. She's cool. I enjoyed it. Also thought it was cool that I had an opportunity to finally sit down and speak with her. In fact, I was just finishing unpacking one of the very last boxes from my move to our home here on South Padre Island, and literally I found the call sheet that listed all the actors for the Astronaut Wives Club, and I believe it was 2014. So we're almost 10 years. I believe we shot it somewhere around September or December 2014. It was a blast to talk with her and to make a connection, and I'm glad that you had the opportunity to check it out. Hey, do me a favor, if you would. Grab your device, whatever you use, whatever app you use, follow Story and Craft. Small favor, but you get to be notified every time there's a new episode of Story and Craft. Shoot me a note if you would. All you got to do is go to storyandcraftpod.com. Once again, storyandcraftpod.com. Whatever's on your mind, just say hi. I've been getting some wonderful notes over the last couple of weeks. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking time to check out the show. Great chats coming up. We are moving to a 2-episode per week release schedule. We got so many folks we're speaking with. Very cool that we get to connect twice a week. Hey, I want you to do me a favor also. Go have yourself a really awesome day, all right, or evening, weekend, whatever you've got going on. Again, thank you so much for making this show such a pleasure to bring to you. We'll be back in just a few days, you and I together once again right here on Story and Craft.
That's it for this episode of Story and Craft. Join Mark next week for more conversation right here on Story and Craft. Story and Craft is a presentation of Mark Preston Productions, LLC. Executive producer is Mark Preston. Associate producer is Zachary Holden. Please rate and review Story and Craft on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can subscribe to show updates and stay in the know. Just head to storyandcraftpod.com and sign up for the newsletter. I'm Emma Dillon. See you next time, and remember, keep telling your story. Come on.